All right, welcome, Pastor Tara. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation. And to start off, I wonder if you can just tell us something about yourself, who you are.
Sure. So my name is Tara Williams, as you said, and I currently serve as the interim senior pastor at New Covenant Christian Church in North Nashville. A little bit about who I am is, so I'm a third generation preacher's kid, so grew up in the church, Baptist faith, strong Christian upbringing, was in the church more than I was out of the church. So back in the day when you used to have Sunday school and then worship and then Baptist training union, and then you come back for, evening service at 6:00, and then back all week for revival, or being drugged across the state of West Virginia to revivals all during the week. So also a musical family, so a lot of singers in the family, and so family gatherings were very spiritual of sorts. There always would be some breakout of song and praise, which is beautiful. And so moved to Nashville and met my husband, raised 5 kids, stepped into ministry. Well, always been in ministry. It's kind of it's in my DNA. It's part of my fabric. So I've always been in ministry. But accepted my call as a female who was raised in a very Baptist tradition that women weren't called to the pulpit. Ran from that call a long time. But in 2007 it caught me, and I was licensed into ministry. And then in 2013 I entered Vanderbilt Divinity School, where I graduated with honors from the Vanderbilt Divinity School with a degree with the Master of Divinity, and went on to be ordained and in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, and worked through college, through the MDiv program at New Covenant as executive pastor. And so last year I'm called to be the interim pastor and have enjoyed that work, and definitely feel called to full-time ministry. I think interim work gave me a different lens from being even an associate minister, from being exec pastor, into what full-time ministry could look like. And so really excited about what God is doing and how God is moving, and look forward to seeing how this all unfolds on the other side.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, it is. Very exciting.
And I feel so blessed to have you as my pastor, because you are my pastor, you know. You should hear me talk about you.
Oh, no, I haven't talked good stuff.
Oh, good things. So our topic today is about pastoral care in tough times, for self and for others. But before we dive right into that, I just wanted to know if you can share a spiritual practice or some mental health routine, or just something that you do to take care of yourself.
Sure, yeah. I think there are many things that I do as spiritual practices, first and foremost, and I think this is taboo, or it has been taboo in the past, particularly in the African American culture, to talk about therapy. And I think that therapy is critical, particularly in this work of ministry. I think therapy is fine. Period. I think if you're not in ministry, you should have a therapist or two. But for sure, if you're in ministry, just having that place where you can go and release all of the things that are being poured onto you. And I think that's one of the main things that I've learned in being in ministry, is that as someone who is out there and people feel comfortable talking to you, we're taking on all of the energies of those individuals, everything that they're, from their cat being sick to, mama is on her last days. All of that stuff is being poured onto you, and it's attaching to you. And so you have to have a place where you can go and release some of that stuff, of your own stuff, because that's piling on top of what's going on already inside of you. And so people often think that nothing happens to ministers, nothing happens to pastors. And that's so far from the truth. We also have, the sick cat and the aging parents and the broken heart and, the disappointment. So we have our own. And so it's just good to have a place to go where you can unpack all of that, and have someone who has no vested interest in what you're talking about, that can help you then begin to put things in buckets so that you can resolve them, so that you can at least come to peace with them, because not everything can be resolved, right? Or it's the peace that comes from just understanding what happened, what took place. It happened, it's real, and finding peace with it. And so therapy for sure is one of them. The other thing, and since you happen to sit, under me week after week, I think you hear this a lot, is that I truly, truly believe in those quiet times of finding time to pray and to read the scriptures. The stuff that happens to us is real, and it's coming. The Bible tells us, over and over and over again, that in this life we're going to have tribulations, but to be of good cheer, for he has already overcome the world. And the only way to do that, to overtake this flesh that wants to always react or act with our emotions, is to allow the praises to rise from within. And in order to do that, that means that you have to have spent some time in scriptures and reading the word, and understanding the word and applying the word to your life, but also in praying, in conversation with God. So not always opening our mouths to ask God for something, but also having those still quiet moments where we are listening for God to then pour into us and to fill us with it, and to activate that Holy Spirit that's inside of us. And so much of the power to overcome the things that we are dealing with are within us, but have to be nurtured through scripture and prayer, and constant. It can't be, I picked it up last week, but I didn't pick it up this week. It has to be a continuous daily practice of reading the word and praying and being in conversation with God, so that it can come from the inside and overtake those fleshly emotions that we have. I think a good therapist, and then a good time with Jesus in the Word and through prayer are two spiritual practices that I would say, are really three spiritual practices that I say, operate sort of hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing those spiritual practices. And so now, just diving right into the topic. What has been helpful for you when you've had to be there as a calming presence, a presence of support to somebody who's going through a tough time, and then also the other side of when you are going through a very hard time and then having to be there for somebody. So I wonder what has been helpful for you, and any advice you can give people who are upcoming ministers.
Great question, and I think the two really go hand in hand, right? Like, life happens to everybody, and so I think or at least for me as pastor, having gone through different situations, different scenarios, the loss of parents, the loss of children, the loss of employment, the loss of income, being homeless, all those things that are potential, challenges in life. I just remember what I needed in those moments. And so as I go into counseling, as I go into therapy, as I go into difficult situations, I think about what I was looking for and what I needed in those moments. And then try to make that applicable for the other person. And sometimes, quite honestly, it's the ask. Simply, how can I support you? And sometimes all people want is if you can just sit here and pray for me. And they don't want you to talk to them. They don't want to talk about the situation. They just want to know that you are there and you're present and you're praying. Then there are other people who will say, I need more. I need you to, to surround me and to make sure that, I'm never alone. And, as a pastor, you're kind of reading the energy in the room. You're reading the energy of the person. And then the good news is it doesn't always all fall on the pastor. If you happen to be a pastor of a church, then you have your elders and your deacons and your spiritual leaders. And so you make that appeal to them as well to say, hey, this person is going through a crisis and they have the request. And so can we surround them by providing meals, maybe once a week? Or can we make sure that the children are getting, to and from school? Or can we make sure that the children, we get them on a Saturday so that they can have some alone time, some quiet time? So I think that as a pastor, it's about pastoral care, a lot of it is about being to others what you would want to be somebody to be for you. And then also being able to manage your personnel, so to speak, if you happen to be a pastor of a church, to manage your personnel, to build them and to train them up so that you have some extra support, because the pastor can't do it all. The pastor is one person, and we're not God, so we can't be, with member A and with member B and member C at the same time. And so how do you build your team and train your team and develop your team so that the pastor doesn't have to be everywhere all the time? There's some other folks that can step in and step up. And so I think that's an important part of understanding, pastoral care, is that, yes, the pastor has a responsibility to care for the people, but there's also a team around the pastor that can also be nurtured and trained to help tend to the sheep. And I also think that to the second part of your question, we're no good to anyone if we haven't been able to take care of ourselves. And so part of being able to take care of yourself is training up the team around you to be able to take some of that load and to be able to say, I'm not going to be able to come today, but my elders are on the way, or my deacons are on the way, and I'll check back in with you, on tomorrow, or I'll check back in with you the next day. But we're going to surround you, and it may not be me, but it may be my team. I think I've asked this question a lot lately. Like, who encourages the encourager? Like, it's always expected that the pastor is going to be on their A game. And so, we can't hurt. We can't cry. We can't be... That doesn't work. Right. That's not realistic. And so I think, breaking that or normalizing the fact that the pastors can be broken too. That pastors can have moments too where they need someone to care for the pastor. And so pastoral care isn't just the pastor caring for the people, but it's also the people caring for the pastor. Pastoral care, right? And so who's caring for those people? Who's making sure that, the pastor's arms are always lifted up, right? Where's my Aaron? Where's my her? That's helping me to keep my arms lifted up, or that's keeping my spirit encouraged. And so, I found that I really have to be. The other thing about pastors is we have to be so careful about who's in our circle, who's in our inner circles. And so thanks be to God, I've been blessed to have a few people that I know I can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I just need a moment to have a meltdown here and to know that someone is praying and someone is talking. And so, I think a part of that is finding that small group that can be your pastoral care, the pastoral care for the pastor, that you can trust, to hold confidence, to know that they're praying even when you don't have something going on, that they're always calling your name, they're always lifting those prayers up to keep you encouraged, even though you don't know it's happening. And I think it's those components of pastoral care that matter and that are important.
You've said so much. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that's just a very beautiful reminder about pastoral care. It's not just the pastor completely always emptying yourself for everybody else, but there's also like the care of the community together. So I don't know. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about how individual care is tied to communal care, and community like they're just so intertwined. Thank you.
Yes.
And necessary.
Yes.
Yeah. And then also I'm thinking from this, another conversation that could come out of this would be how to go about, because you talked about building up spiritual leaders and different people in the church who can also take on these responsibilities. So it's like, how do you go about building that if there is some like hesitation or something, That's another conversation.
One I would love to have, because what's at the very core to me, and I think, again, you would know this from sitting under me and kind of watching, but I do believe in leadership development, and I do believe in taking the time to be in conversation with people, to hear their stories, to hear their gifts, to hear where their passions are, and to try to find a way to develop those and to make those stronger and to strengthen them to go out and to do. And a lot of that is about just equipping people to be able to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
So I know. Some people say we get all these titles and then we don't want to do any work with it. Well, no, the title comes with some work. And so making sure that people are equipped to have those titles so that they can go out and serve. Because that's what the title is about, right? It doesn't even really matter what the title is. All you really hear is serve. Mm-hmm. Elder, serve. Mm-hmm. Deacon, serve. Pastor, serve. It's about service. That is what the body of Christ is about, is to serve others. And so how do we equip people to give them the confidence to be able to do it? And I think that's, you just said that. You said that earlier as you gave the introduction about, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it was basically like how do people, people don't feel comfortable talking to people about end of life or those kinds of transitions that are coming. And you said more eloquent than that, but that was what you were saying. And so how do you give people? How do you learn to do that? Well, you build people's confidence to know that, again, if you're practicing your spiritual practices and you're reading the scriptures and you're praying to God, then within you are the words are going to rise up to be able to sit with someone who's lost or is in the process of losing someone. The words are going to come from the Bible. Those are the best words to comfort people with, right? Or the Word of God. But then also your genuineness of being real, of being authentic. And so all of that is a part of just empowering people and then giving them the tools that they need to be able to walk confidently, knowing that they are equipped with that. If God brought you to this work, then God has already equipped you to be able to make the journey with the next person.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Well, yeah. Thank you so much, Pastor Tara. Thank you so much. One of the hardest things I think about this series is going to be trying to keep them short, because I feel like there's so much more we could talk about. But I want to thank you so much for everything. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you so much for doing this, for sharing your wisdom from your experience, and I love you so much.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, and I love you too. And I'm happy to do more of these. I enjoy the conversations and sharing because I think all of us are on a journey. And the more opportunities we get to meet other people who are also on the journey, then we can understand kind of that we don't have to know it all. Mm-hmm. I keep saying it's the practice of ministry because everything continues to evolve and to change as we grow. It's more spiritually mature, more spiritually wise. It continues to evolve.
Mm-hmm.